up, guys? Back again, working on the Datsun a little bit. Got some parts back. Gonna go over kind of where we're at on the 2025 updates. So behind me here, we got the transmission back from Tick. They fixed it up good. Got the clutch back from Rob. We got a couple new discs. He fixed the floater up where it's nice and straight now. Everything, I think he took it apart and straightened some other stuff. Basically, it was way out of whack. He said that was one of the worst burn up adjustable clutches he's seen. So a lot of that is from me not knowing what I'm doing yet, but now starting to get the hang of it, and hopefully this year we won't destroy it as bad in our few times to the track. So a few things. This is the Tick drag slave cylinder. This is like a two-stage deal. I've talked about it a little bit in my previous video, I think. So push the clutch in, the bearing comes out super fast before it touches the levers here. And so that will help, because when the counterweights push these levers down and add clamping force to the pressure plate, it pushes the bearing back. And like a standard slave cylinder like this, like it's tilting here, when it's resting, before those levers come back, when you rev at a lot of RPM, it's pushed out a little bit. Well, it has a little cushion there, so when the levers push back, it pushes the bearing all the way back, pushing the fluid back up into the master cylinder. So you have this big gap between the bearing and the levers. So at the end of your pass, or after your burnout, or really anytime after you rev the motor up, you're going to have to pump the clutch about 3 or 4 times before it ever touches these levers to disengage it. So that's kind of like a speed foot challenge there whenever you're on the track, because there's a lot going on, and you know the clutch won't disengage. You're sitting there pumping it, trying to get it disengaged. So that's why Matt and the guys up there come up with this. So when you push it in, it races out really fast, and then the last portion of your pedal travel will actually disengage the clutch. So because of this, we had a 3/4 bore, a master cylinder on there, and you're gonna have to excuse the cough because it's one of these that's not going to go away for a while. But we had to upgrade to a 1-inch just so it'll push more fluid. And I'll put a picture up right here if I can think about it when I edit the video. You know, people think, you know, a 1/4 inch bigger really isn't that big. But just like with wastegates, that would be like going from a 45mm wastegate up to a 60. And this is the comparison here laying on the table. So you can see how much more fluid this 1-inch is going to move than the 3/4 that we had in there. So I went ahead and done that. It was direct swap out. Just took my rod out that I had made to hook up to the pedal assembly, swapped it out, and it bolted right in the FFP pedal assembly that I've got. So all that's ready to go in, fresh set of bolts. Let's talk about the height between this slave cylinder and the Tilton. So the height of this one versus the Tilton is about 1/8 inch difference whenever they're all the way mounted up, as far as it's spacing off the front of the transmission there. So because of that, we're going to have to space the transmission back even more off the clutch to get our clearance right at a resting position, as far as, because you want these little levers to be able to move, because if they're not able to move back, then putting counterweight on it does no good, because they'll just push against the bearing and they won't add any more pressure because they can't move. So to fix that spacing, we had a 3/8 spacer made to take place of the 1/4 inch that was on there. So that got us our extra 1/8 inch right there. We mounted it up the same way, put little bolts in there with nuts, that way it doesn't come off the bell housing. It's kind of part of it. I hate having a bunch of loose parts to have to try to line up. We took about a 1/4 inch off of this, because this, if you remember, I don't know if you've noticed in my videos, but that was sitting right against the shifter here. There was no room, so I took a 1/4 inch just to make sure that that wasn't like jammed against the transmission there. Also, the transmission cross member, the holes were big enough, or not the holes were big enough, but I had enough tabs, so I just ovaled the holes where I didn't have to remake that. I know I'm saying a lot, but I'm trying to cover everything that's being changed here. We're also changing to a pilot bearing. This is the factory 5th gen bearing. See, it's a pretty good sized bearing. It goes in the end of the crankshaft there. We have been running this extended pilot bushing, and while it does good, it just, now that the car is acting right, is actually going down the track, this thing doesn't last. It gets flop in it, and it'll start singing pretty good. It'll have some harmonic that goes through the clutch, kind of a sound when you're letting off the clutch. That's because the input shaft is shaking around, kind of vibrating. So we're going to put this bearing in there, but you can't run this bearing unless the transmission is spaced at least as far as what we've done it now. So a lot of measuring you got to do there to make sure it's not going to, mess up anything, or nothing's going to interfere. So I think all that's good to go. We've got our window net over here. This was actually a screw up. Stroud, we offer these custom window nets for F-bodies now, which look exactly like this, but they have a taper on the bottom. And Stroud screwed up our order and sent us these ones that are just square. They don't have the short dimension on it. So I called them and I said, you want me to send these back because the dimension is wrong? And they said, no, we screwed up. We fat fingered the keyboard, or just, fast forwarded and disregarded that one dimension. So just keep those window nets, do whatever you want with them, and we'll send you the right one. So, we appreciate them taking care of their mistake there. But the good thing is, this window net fits perfect in my car, and I've got 4 more just like it. So if anybody wants one, I'll sell you one for cheap. But went off the kidney bar here, and this is the Hammer Concepts hardware kit, which I've done some videos on that before, but you see, drops right out. It's hard to hold the camera and see because everything's black in this car. But right back on, effortless. So just like the F-body kit, same thing, but worked out perfect in this car. Nothing in there. I might have talked about backing this bar up before in the video. We've actually done it now. So here's the bar backed up 4 inches with the gusset. So a lot more room to get in and out of the car now. Another thing I've been working on is my weight bias. So this thing doesn't really have a lot of weight on the front. I think with me in the car, as it sits, with that little chunk that was right here originally, I'm less than 57, just under 57% on the front, and that is really not enough for a 90-inch wheelbase car with the amount of torque this thing puts out. So it's a struggle to hold the front down and get it to do what it's supposed to do. I'm still learning. I'm sure that we can, get it dialed in, but for now I needed some more ballast weight in the front. And I didn't want to start clamping weights all over the bars and doing all this stuff. I mean, I know some people don't have any choice, but I didn't want to do that. I don't like the look of it, and I wanted something more sleek and that looked good. So we made this little 3/16 piece that welded in between the frame rails in the front. And then if you watch my video on melting the lead, I melted this lead down and made this 50-pound bar, which it's a little bit less than 50 now because I had to shave it down to go in there the way I wanted it. So with that and this plate here, I've got about 50 more pounds dead on the nose. You can't get any more forward than this. And my tree will go right over top of it, even though it don't. Yeah, you can see right there. So my tree from my front end will slide it'll go almost to the back of this thing all the way across. So all that'll clear, and that looks good. You know, it's aesthetically something I don't mind looking at, and that was a way to put 50 more pounds right on the nose. So whenever we get everything back together, I will throw it on the scales, and hopefully that's added maybe a % or 2 to the nose, and that'll help me, you know, progress in figuring out how to keep this thing down and bring the power in sooner. Because ideally we need to be giving it pretty much what we've been running it at on our 480 pass. We need to be giving it that power within, you know, before we get into second gear. So within a second or so. We don't need to be holding that power back until like 2 seconds, because that's killing a lot of the time we could be gaining. And you know, my mile per hour might not go up much, but I think I can gain a solid, you know, 1/10 or 2 just by not wasting half my track time on 5 psi. So we'll probably come back to the video whenever I actually put it on the scales and verify that the weight's done what it's supposed to do, when we get the transmission and all that stuff back together. But I just wanted to explain some of the updates in detail before everything got back together, so you can kind of see what's going on. So we'll see you next time.